Of course, we understand that this plan doesn't come without, problematic areas. For example, we know that this plan is replacing an apartheid system with a colonial project. Within this plan, there are systems that are built in to maintain the status quo, which is apartheid and oppression. So our job as an advocacy team, and health advocates, is to deal with the root cause of injustice on the ground and to make sure that this peace plan, the so-called peace plan, doesn't come without accountability. So we need this accountability to be built in. We need to make sure that the ICJ decisions about self-determination and conditional, recognition of the state of Palestine are things that we continue to advocate for, because we know that the root cause of genocide is racism and systems of oppression. So our advocacy work, if anything, it will intensify, it will continue to increase in intensity, and we will continue to work until we achieve a just peace for our people in Palestine. Of course, this is a moment for rest and relief for our people in Gaza, but for us in the diaspora, us who are working tirelessly to end injustice, this work has just begun. We will continue to work until we dismantle our systems of oppression. Nidal.
Yeah, actually, we were supposed to be joined by Dr. Ahmed Al-Farra from Gaza. He's our colleague there too. But unfortunately, because the hospital he works at is the Nasser Medical Complex, it's the largest, remaining functioning hospital in Gaza. But despite that, the small generator that they have went out of service and they lost power. That's why he could not join. So just tells you an example of how bad the situation is still in Gaza, especially the healthcare system. Like you have the major hospital in the area, out of power, and imagine that there are patients, there are people in the ICU units on ventilators, and NICU units. None of them is getting treatment now, and they have to manually sustain them until they can, get the power back. And again, as you both mentioned, we share our people the temporary sense of relief. They have been under genocide and bombing nonstop for 2 years. So we do welcome any relief for them, any break, even if temporary. But if if the past is any example, we know we cannot trust Israel, we cannot trust Netanyahu, we cannot trust the United States, we cannot trust the genociders, because genocidal groups and ideologies and leaders, they do not stop. They will always find a way to break their promises, and we know that they do break their promises. I think they just want to take their, first part of the deal, run away with it, then try to find any excuse to start the bombing again. That's why we need to warn everyone that we need to keep up the pressure. We need to double down. The systems of injustice are still there. The genociders are still there. Even in the best case scenario, even if the plan goes ahead exactly as written, even if they give the Palestinians a full state that is demilitarized, that is not justice, because that still leaves all the Palestinian people at the mercy of a neighbor that is known for their, injustice, for aggression, for their, craving for expansion, for exploitation. So it is upon us. I think all the movement, the pro-justice movement, pro-Palestine movement, we need to thank all of them, because without them this would not have been achieved. Do not think that Israel stopped this or the United States stopped this because all of a sudden they have mercy for the children. No, they stopped this because of the global pressure on the governments to stop this craziness. And we need to keep up the pressure, because the minute we let up the pressure, they will go back. So we really need to thank the Global Sumud Flotilla, the activists, those non-stop small ships going there, creating more pressure and getting more people, more countries involved. We need to keep doing that, and more in our cities, in our countries. We need to keep the activism until until those structures, the structures themselves that gives them the power, at any time to go against the victims need to be dismantled, and we need to create systems that are protective of everyone, that have equity, that respect the freedom, the human rights of every human being, regardless of the names of these systems. Again, we share some relief. We feel that our people deserve it. It's already 2 years too late, but we cannot trust this. We need to keep the pressure. We need to work even harder and smarter, and create also organizations and collaborations that are more effective in stopping this from ever happening again, whether in Palestine or anywhere else in the world.
And on the topic of what happens next, I'm in the city of Nablus, which is about 300,000 people that live in the city. Just to give people a context of what it feels to live in a city like Nablus, which is one of the largest cities in the West Bank. You have a city that is surrounded by 4 different checkpoints. To get in and to get out, you have to get through one of these checkpoints, and these checkpoints can very easily be blocked. That means a city like Nablus can be choked overnight. So we want to make sure that all eyes remain on Palestine. That includes Gaza, of course. We want to get in there. We want to take stock of all the atrocities, the damage, hold the perpetrators accountable, start the rebuilding, look at ways that we can maintain the resilience of the people there. But also the West Bank is a direct risk of not only annexation, but a genocide that is brewing. We see the Israeli authorities, like in Nablus, they were there last night, they were there yesterday, they continue to get in, they continue to attack and shoot at people, kill people, arrest people, and nobody seems to be stopping them. So our work is cut out for us, and we need every single one to continue to pour energy and effort into this work, because we want to dismantle occupation, we want to dismantle oppression, and we want to liberate Palestine. And we want to liberate all all the countries that are affected by genocide. So the work has just begun. There's so much to do. We need 1,000 Sumud flotillas. Thank you so much for putting your lives at risk, really, and dedicating so much energy towards this. And we know that they get intercepted and people get arrested and actually abducted, tortured in some cases. But this work has to continue. We need all eyes on Palestine. We need all hands on deck, and we need to 10x, 100x everything we've been doing, because now is the real work. Now it's when it starts.
So true. And I'm actually, the work never stops. So I am actually on my way to AIPAC, which is the lobby, the Israeli lobby here in the United States. And we have a protest there today to remind people that the journey is not over, and we have to keep going and not stop. So apologies for changing location and being in my car as I continue to host this conversation with you both. I wanted to ask you both about Israel's direct assaults on healthcare facilities. Specifically, earlier on, we heard a lot of excuses. It was an accidental attack on a hospital. It was, whoops, we didn't mean to do that, or even justification. There was the command center underneath the hospital, for example, and the fake calendar on the wall that they believed, was whatever justification they used. Now, I have a question with regards to, what do you think is the purpose of Israel's deliberate attack on the healthcare system? Because in essence, wanting you to specifically talk about what role healthcare play in healthy and thriving societies.
Yeah, I mean, that's very important. And that's exactly one of the reasons that we early on called this a genocide, not just a regular war. Because in regular war, armies fight each other. What's happening or what happened in Gaza is a genocide annihilation campaign on the people to destroy and to kill as many people as you can, and also to destroy their institutions, their hospitals, their healthcare systems that can help them survive, that can help them, be resilient and stay where they are. Because we used to hear from actually many of our people in Gaza, like especially in the north, they used to stay in their homes despite the bombing as long as the lights in the hospitals are on, because the minute the light goes off, they lose hope. As long as the hospital lights are still on, they feel that at least even if something happens to them, they have somewhere to go. There is someone there to save them, to treat their children, their mothers, their fathers, if they need help. But once the hospital lights turn off, once the hospital gets evacuated, of course, by force, because none of our doctors, none of our colleagues ever abandoned their people, voluntarily. They were all either killed or, illegally tortured or injured or abducted and tortured, stuff like that. Also the other thing is all the civilian infrastructure, including the hospitals, civilian institutions. These are institutions that help the society rebuild, that help the society sustain itself. And part of the committing genocide, they go against the skilled people in any society, whether they are doctors, engineers, thinkers, activists, journalists, because they know that these people, as long as they are there, even if you hit the site, even if you kill, a great number of society, once they have the doctors, their engineers, their activists, their thinkers, their leaders, they can still rebuild. But once you get rid of the healthcare system and all the other people that sustained and can rebuild and reorganize society, that is actually, in a way, completes their job. If they cannot kill them all, at least you need to kill their spirit and kill their ability to reorganize or to rebuild, kill their identity. Only leave lay people in the streets that are disorganized, that you can use them as you wish, for your labor, for as slaves. So the attack on the healthcare system was intentional. It's not just a random thing. It is part of destroying the spirit of the Palestinian people, destroying their ability to survive, destroying their ability to rebuild. And hopefully our people proved them wrong. They continued to stay there. They continued, actually, many of these hospitals have been bombed and attacked multiple times. And every time they bomb a hospital, our people, despite all the difficulties, despite the lack of all equipment and material, stuff like that, they always rebuilt. They always tried to use, whatever means they have to continue to be there for their people.
I wanted to
Myself,
ask a follow-up
Yeah.
yes.
question.
I just want to add to what
Yeah, go
Nidal
ahead.
said, that like in addition to how important hospitals are and healthcare facilities are to the possibility of people staying in their locations, basically avoiding displacement. You're talking about killing over 1,700 healthcare workers. You're talking about a world-class healthcare system that has been targeted systemically over and over again. This is not just a short-term impact. It takes how many years to actually train a doctor? And especially when you're looking at specialized doctors, you're talking about like decades of training that are required to rebuild this core competency within Gaza. So those attacks are not just accidents, they're systemic, and they're meant to inflict long-term impacts on the Palestinian society. If you combine that with the starvation, with the constant displacement of Palestinians, changing the entire demographic, makeup of the Palestinian community, then you are looking at a massive long-term impact. So the reason why they target healthcare is not just for now, it's for generations to come. They want to create a generation of Palestinians that is, suffering from the loss, the severe loss of competence that has occurred, and it's something that we need to really flag all the time. And it's actually in this specific genocide is very unique, and it's focus on attacking healthcare. No other genocide actually has that same level of intensity when it comes to attacking healthcare. So Israel is not doing this by accident. It's a very systemic and intentional way. Thankfully, the Palestinian people, we know we have a lot of resilience. We do grow from from the suffering, and we continue to rebuild. Like one example is as Lulu, like an amazing student who created an organization to support other medical students. So we're seeing, despite all of this, that the resilience of the Palestinian people continue to shine through all these atrocities. And our job as people in solidarity is to maintain that resilience through our advocacy efforts and pressure on our governments to really put an end to the occupation.
Can I add one more thing?
Yes,
Sorry.
absolutely,
So
absolutely.
again, the other point to highlight also is they have been attacking the most senior doctors and healthcare workers, not just the regular healthcare workers. The most senior orthopedic, the most senior surgeon, the most senior, heart doctor. They are attacking those because, as Maisa mentioned, these people, you do not just grow overnight. These have been leading the healthcare system for decades in Gaza, and it's very hard to replace them. The other point is when you attack a doctor or a nurse or any hospital, you are not just killing one person or one nurse. You are depriving the society of a person who could help hundreds and hundreds of victims. So it's like it's a compounded benefit for them as genocidaires, because one doctor, one senior doctor here, or even one nurse, anyone in this hospital, you are not just taking one person out of the way, you are taking a person who could have helped thousands and thousands of victims at a time when the society needs them the most, because this is not just a usual everyday time you can replace a nurse here, replace a doctor there. You are talking about a society that's been undergoing genocide for 2 years. The number of casualties, the number of injuries, the number of chronic cases, the number of need for the healthcare system is 1,000 times more than usual circumstances, and at the same time you are depriving them of whatever remains to help these people.
And that is a that is a very important point. And actually, one of the things I wanted to bring in was the voices from the front lines of Gaza. And it's unfortunate that Dr. couldn't be with us, Dr. Al-Farah couldn't be with us, but very understandable that there's no electricity and the generator has failed. But you bring up something very important, which is Israel intentionally and deliberately attacks the healthcare system to try to break the Palestinian spirit. And you kind of really helped me understand this idea that, people do look for hospitals as a sense of safety and security. I don't think I've connected those pieces to each other. But we've seen the heroic reality and the heroism of so many Palestinian doctors, that despite seeing their colleagues abducted, despite seeing their colleagues targeted, despite seeing their families, their medical healthcare workers' families targeted. So it's not just the healthcare provider, but it's also their families. They keep showing up. Not only do they keep showing up, they are documenting children with their guts hanging out on the tables of these makeshift emergency rooms, bodies laying all over the floor. So the mental toil.
We lost you,
We're
Hassan. We
losing your
don't hear you.
audio, Hazami.
We don't hear you. We don't hear you, Hazami. Yes, I think it's coming back now.
Oh, I cut off. Sorry, somebody was
Yes.
calling me. Did you hear my question at all? I don't know when I cut off.
The
No.
mental toll. I think you cut off at when you were talking about the mental
Yeah, the
toll of
mental toll.
documenting.
Yeah, so the mental toll, I mean, you're talking about the critical role that physicians play in the community also, and also that people are looking at healthcare providers, in order to get hope, when the hospital lights are on, that there's a sense of hope and safety and at least potential security. Bringing in the stories of physicians in Gaza that you guys have worked with directly, what keeps them going despite the fact that they've had to document that which is unfathomable, children with their guts spilling out on the tables, makeshift hospital infrastructure where you have bodies upon bodies of wounded children laying all over the floor. In some cases, we watched videos of doctors seeing their own family members being brought into the hospitals. What keeps this going? What keeps these doctors committed? And share with us, please, some stories from Gaza that you can, if you can, please.
I mean, the doctors in Gaza, they asked us never to glorify them, right? They don't want to be told they're heroes. To them, they're doing their job. They're doing their humanitarian work is to actually serve. And I think this says a lot about the training of the doctors in Palestine, that they are trained to be human first and to fulfill their oath, actually, to protect life and to do no harm. And so that tells you something about the training of physicians in the Western world, actually, because it's a profit business. It's not really focused on saving lives. So that's, I think, one thing. And Nidal can tell you a lot more stories than I. But the sentiment that we get from our colleagues in Gaza is that they, despite everything that's happening, they see that as their duty to maintain, not only their level of humanity, but a very high level of professionalism. We've seen excellence come out in the middle of genocide. We've seen like world-class, thought coming out of genocide, just using their expertise to solve very complex problems that are happening during a genocide. And it's interesting because when we feel that Gaza saved us, we feel that we actually get inspiration and energy, and it's through the action and the advocacy that we work that we've been able to somehow redeem our own humanity. It's actually interesting because it goes both ways, right? They do feel our solidarity. They get energy from that. They know that the world is moving. They see the Doctors Against Genocide going to the Hill every month and having conversations with decision makers, and that actually gives them energy and hope because we've got their back and we continue to do the work. It doesn't come near to the level of sacrifice, of course, that they do, but the world has become so connected in the solidarity movement that they're doing their job and they're doing what they've been trained to do. But at the same time, our advocacy, our activism is actually fueling the energy in some ways. So I'm saying this because it's very important to maintain that level and to even increase it all the time. We've seen Dr. Loh, who was killed 2 days after he was interviewed, and he was asked, "Why don't you leave?" And his answer was, "Do you think I trained to be a doctor to leave my patients? We are not animals. We deserve to have excellent care." And that's actually a sentiment across the board. We hear it from all the doctors, from all the students, from all the nurses, from all the paramedics. It's a very consistent sentiment, and it's something to be said about the level of excellence in training our doctors in Palestine. They always ask us to say, we are not heroes, we are just doing our work. So there's a fine line between acknowledging the sacrifice and effort and glorifying them because they're human. They also suffer, they also have families, and they've experienced loss the same way that everybody else does, but they are just driven by something more human, right? To continue to do the work and to continue to show up and, take risk every single day to save, your patients. Nidal.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's very true. And as you said, they don't like to be called heroes, but they are heroes. All the people in Gaza, whether the doctors, healthcare workers, the regular average citizen, and part of it is doing your duty, your moral obligation as a doctor. As Dr. Loh mentioned, I went to school for 14 years to help the people, to help the patients, not to abandon them, not to look for my comfort, not just to look for money. And the stories are, there are so many stories. But I also think that the doctors in Gaza, they do this as part of their national duty. Not just the medicine, it's national duty. It's your role. If you are a doctor, if you are in the society that is put in this situation, the intention of the enemy is to destroy you, then your steadfastness, your refusing to leave, to abandon your people becomes a resistance by itself, because you refuse the program that is meant for your people by insisting on your obligation to continue to be there, to continue to provide, to continue to do all what you can despite all the difficulties. And the stories, I mean, we are doctors, we are used to see injured people, we are used to do surgeries, but again, there is a limit to things. Like you're used to do a surgery once a day, a few surgeries a day, have a bad case in the emergency room maybe once a month. But the doctors in Gaza to have 4 or 5 mass casualties every day in the emergency room. Each one is, you're talking about 200, 300 people who have the worst injuries, just babies without heads, babies blown to pieces, mothers, the most lethal weapons in the world used on on civilians in mass numbers, knowing that you only have few providers there and the capabilities of the hospitals are very limited, and you have to choose between them. Using the triage, doing this triage that the doctors in Gaza are doing is the most painful thing in the world, that you have to choose between 10 or 15 people. You only treat one who has the most chance to survive. The other ones are still alive, but because there's no time, no resources for them, and their chances of surviving is low, you choose not to treat them, and you just pick and choose. And the doctors who from the United States and the West who go there on their missions, when they see these things happening, it's just so overwhelming. But this is unfortunately what they have been forced to do. And the example of Dr. Abu Sofia, just one example. I mean, he's a very close friend to us, to our organization. Uh, I think of him as the hero of medicine in the whole world. His house was, destroyed multiple times. His son, his 19-year-old son, was murdered. Despite that, he refused to abandon the hospital. He actually asked for them to bring his son to the hospital so they can bury him there, rather than going himself, leaving the hospital and going to his son. And despite multiple threats by these genocidal gangs at him at the hospital to evacuate, to leave, to abandon their patients, they refused until they came and abducting them. And he's unfortunately still being tortured. He lost like more than 25 kilograms or 50 pounds of his weight. He has multiple health problems that have not been attended to. But the good news is, hopefully in 2 or 3 days, we will see him free, despite
Inshallah.
Israel, despite the United States. He might not be in great shape. He might be sick. He might need help. But just seeing Dr. Abu Sofia free soon in 2 or 3 days is worth the world. And inshallah, he will be an example for all those who refuse to betray their humanity, to betray their people, to betray their profession. And he should be an example of all these complicit medical organizations in the United States, in the West, that takes medicine as a business model, as an exploitation model. They value profit over life. And I'm sure most of these organizations that continue to be complicit and silent in the face of genocide and mass slaughter, uh, hopefully their own people, their members, will rise against them and change them, because this is not the medicine. If they give up on the children in Palestine or anywhere else, you will be next. If you don't make money for them, we already see this here in the United States. If you don't have insurance, if you are poor, if you are, the wrong maybe citizenship status, our healthcare system leaves you without. And the COVID also pandemic was another example that people, lower social economic class, were left behind because our system values money, and that is the wrong system. We need to see the model in Gaza, the doctors, the heroes in Gaza who created this model, the model that values life and being there for your people, for your patients, despite all those difficulties. This is the medicine. They are rewriting the morals of true medicine versus the Western, profit-oriented model.
And I know that we're running short on time, but you've brought up something which is a lot of the medical associations abandoned their duty. The American Medical Association, nursing associations, hospital facilities in the United States and other parts of the world actually fired staff for speaking out for Palestinian human rights, even though the staff themselves take an oath to their patients, take an oath to their profession. And so, yes, the doctors and the healthcare providers and nurses and even the techs and the people that serve the hospital facilities and infrastructures, from the sanitation staff to those that are working around the clock to, bring people to the hospitals. We're seeing makeshift ambulances and all that type of stuff. These are the examples of what healthcare systems should be, and the examples, and honestly, a stain on the international community and these big infrastructures and institutions for failing to do that. In the interest of time, I want to ask one concluding question, which is, you both mentioned kind of the long-term sustained impact of healthcare. Starvation. We know, we hear a lot about refeeding syndrome, children that have been malnutritioned for certain amounts of times. Their brain development hinders them. And we're also seeing and learning about intergenerational healthcare issues. I think, Doctora, you mentioned kind of the shift in the composition of the body and the brain. We're learning a lot more about the impacts of the healthcare system, even in a magic situation where you had a wand right now and were able to restore healthcare facilities, damage medically that has been done on bodies that have been starved, traumatized, experienced, the most unjust forms of chemical exposures, where skin conditions are, literally eating the skin of children, as we keep seeing them all over social media. What do we do from now? Like, how do we move forward? What does advocacy look like to support the healthcare system in Gaza? And what can we do as advocates to continue to healthcare equity in Palestine as we move forward?
Yeah, I think very important to center the voices of Gaza always, always, always. As we start rebuilding, the last thing we want to see is rebuilding efforts that are completely empty of context, that are coming to us from a GHF-like, humanitarian system that doesn't actually take into account the reality on the ground. What we've done at Doctors Against Genocide is work really closely with the people in Gaza to really understand, first of all, what is happening, but also what they envision as the solution moving forward. And we take guidance from Gaza because they know their community more than anybody else. They know their needs more than anybody else. And in any effort moving forward, of course, there's going to be huge long-term impacts. Like you said, starvation, the continuous displacement, the largest cohort of child amputations and orphans and children that survived with no surviving parents. So like, you're looking at societal structural damage that is going to take a long time to fix. But the solution has to come from taking guidance from the ground. It has to come from really listening to our colleagues on the ground in Gaza and honoring their expertise and their knowledge and giving them what they need, in terms of, we will deal with, obviously rebuilding hospitals and reskilling, the healthcare system and all those things. But we need to first listen to our people in Gaza. I cannot stress this enough. It's so important because we see this peace deal being administered by, foreign entities. Even the president of the United States is appointed, leading this peace plan. So we want to make sure that whatever rebuilding efforts have sovereignty, take sovereignty into account, and acknowledge that we have deep expertise in Gaza and in Palestine. These are world-class experts that we want to listen to and support and uplift in everything we do.
Yeah, I want to add also that accountability is paramount. It's the most important thing, because if the perpetrators get away with this, if those who continue to be silent, enabled, funded this genocide get away with this means that the scenario can be repeated in Gaza and Palestine, anywhere else, anytime. So accountability is part of the healing. It's part of the prevention. It's part of justice. It's part of health. They need to be held accountable because those victims, those children who have lost 3 limbs and they have to spend the rest of their lives with prosthetics in the best case scenario, they need to feel that whoever caused this to them has been held accountable. That does have psychological value. That's very important. This genocide that has been committed over 2 years, there are so many after effects and health effects of it that are going to be with us forever. They're not reversible. We are all destroyed. We are all mentally destroyed forever. We will never be again or feel like, we were before, before this genocide. And that's us from the outside, just watching what's happening. Imagine the children, the mothers, the families that lost their loved ones, their houses multiple times over. How much is the trauma that they endured and they will continue to endure. So, but with the help of all of us, we will try to help them as much as we can with the things that we can help with. But we know that there are things that can never be reversed. If you lost your limbs, if you lost, we cannot do much. We cannot do much to help you, but we have to do all what we can. And as Maisa said, you have to believe the victims. You have to listen to the victims. They know best what helps them. We need to center their voices, not centering their voices, going with the experts, quote unquote, whoever they is actually part of the erasure. It's part of continuing the genocide. That's why the Palestinians have been going through genocide for 100 years. No one is listening because we always center the others. The leftists here, the leftists in Israel, the leftists there, the UN. No. Going forward, only the Palestinian must speak. Everyone else must listen. Whether you are the UN, whether you are Israel, whether you are the US, it's time for them to shut up and listen and pay their due for the crimes that they committed. Whether it's healthcare, whether it's education, whether it's rebuilding, Gaza should be centered. Gaza, the victims should be, because they know the situation better than anyone else, and we owe it to them to lead this effort. So again, unfortunately, there are things that we cannot fix. And it's going to be an intergenerational trauma, both on the physical side, as you said, children who have been deprived of essential malnutrition for 2 years. They might have consequences all their life. People who lost their families, the psychological trauma, all these things. But again, trust our people. And with the help of all the good people of conscience all over the world, hopefully we will rise again, we will rebuild again. And again, the most important thing is accountability. For us, accountability is medicine. We will insist on accountability. If there is no accountability, this means we are giving them the check, a free check to do it again, over and over again. And this must not be allowed.
Thank you both so much. And I just want to also remind folks that as we're seeing members of the Global Sumud Flotilla come out of illegal Israeli detention, that they've spoken to us about the very poor healthcare conditions inside of Israeli dungeons and places where you have exposure to chemical, irritants, where you have lack of clean drinking water, where you have extremely unsanitary conditions, and lack of food that's moldy and insect infested. I think it is very important for us to acknowledge that beyond the genocide of Gaza, there is still a massive war on healthcare, I would say, carried out by Israel against the Palestinian people in the West Bank, in the in the prison system, and just for those living under occupation, where we're seeing sometimes people die because their ambulance gets caught at a checkpoint that you brought up, and people are not able to obtain cancer treatments or treatments that require kind of international aid at all. So I just wanted to make sure that we brought this up. And as we wrap out, to say that the war on healthcare is one that is central at this point to driving this agenda forward. Thank you both for joining us so much. And I just want to end by showing you guys this beautiful scene from DC that I'm about to join in a moment, where we are out here protesting in front of the Israeli lobby, making sure that the images of children that are targeted by Israel in the hospitals, as you see, are on display for the American public to see. And we need to continue to share these stories. We need to continue to speak up. We need to continue to advocate for healthcare, for justice, for equity, and Dr. Nidal, as you said, for accountability moving forward. So keep on the pressure. Please do follow Doctors Against Genocide. Please do send our deepest love and deep regards for Dr. Rifar, who could not join us from Al-Nasser Hospital, for doing, the work of God. Truly, these physicians are doing the work of God. And this is not to glorify them. It's to acknowledge what it takes to keep going when every system fails you. But what has not failed them is their faith, their conviction, and their humanity. And may Gaza continue to guide all of us with those three things in our hearts. Thank you for joining us both.
Thank
and
you, Hazan.
we'll
Thank
see you.
Palestine.
And next time
you.
in Palestine, all of us. Thank you.
Inshallah.
Inshallah. Thank you.
Okay, salam alaikum.